Hey, hey, come on in, family. Something new here on Nikki Thomas TV. I call it Bay Area Amplify. This is the organizations, the people, and the stories shaping the Bay Area. And today, the spotlight is on lifelong medical care. Can you believe this? Celebrating 50 years of serving the Bay. My name is Nikki Thomas. You may know me from my 20 years on the radio at 102.9 KBLX. And as a matter of fact, my special guest today, you can still hear him on KBLX, the one and only Dr. Michael LeNoir. He is a pediatrician, an allergist, former president of the National Medical Association, and CEO of the African American Wellness Project, and one of the Bay Area's most trusted voices in healthcare. Please welcome our extremely special guest today, the one and only Dr. Michael LeNoir. How are you today?
I'm good for one and only.
You are the one and only. And that is how I described you, one of the distinctive voices of KBLX. When I walked in the door, you were already a celebrity on KBLX. So it is really an honor for us to sit down and have a conversation today. So welcome. And let's just go ahead and jump in because we're celebrating 50 years of lifelong medical care
Right.
in the Bay. I want to make sure that we're all like on the same page because there's been so many changes on the radio, but I understand you are still a part of KBLX and we can hear you on KBLX. What is it? Did you say once a week?
Well, one week in drive time on Wednesdays and a couple times on the weekend with people after church. But I've been doing it a long time. I was a medical editor for CBS Radio for 15 years, KBLA for 15. But I've always been on KBLX for almost 25 years.
Oh, wait, man. I've been on KBLX for a long time, but you got me beat. I wanted to make sure to touch down there first. Really, this is a conversation about community and, the folks that really make the Bay Area what it is. There's voices, there's stories, there's connections. And, this is a voice that we all know and love. So I had the pleasure of hosting the Lifelong Medical Care's 50th anniversary gala not too long ago. And we got a glimpse into the lifelong medical care beginnings. And it is a wonderful story. I love that the word storytelling is like a hot ticket nowadays. But let's just go back for the folks who might have missed certain parts of the story. How did this all begin, lifelong medical care here in the Bay Area?
Well, from my perspective and understanding, it started as a small community clinic in over 60s. And it was so successful as a model there, it began to grow. Now I think it has about 14 or 15 different clinics that many of which have specialty functions. But it started very small 50 years ago and has grown since that time to be what it is.
And now speaking of storytelling, I'm sure you got like plenty of stories, being a part of lifelong medical care. And we got to hear some of them at the 50th anniversary gala. So, what do you think, maybe a story might pop up in your head. So what do you think makes lifelong unique? I heard some really unique stories. But what do you think makes it unique? Because that's a level of care when you get to be in the community for 50 years.
I've been with Lifelong approximately 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I had my own practice in both allergy, consulting allergy and pediatrics, with about 4,000 patients. And so consequently, when I got ready to think about retiring, I thought about what would I like to do in retirement. And I said, I don't want to completely stop practice. And I don't want to continue to run a business. So I sold my allergy practice to a group of allergists, and I joined Lifelong with the patients that I had that qualified. And I joined it because I know that Lifelong has a long history of dealing with underserved communities and dealing with them with respect and confidence. And I wanted to be sure that whatever I transitioned to was less commercial and more impactful. And I thought the fact that Lifelong is committed for 50 years to the underserved, or in my particular practice, our statement was anyone who comes in regardless of insurance, as long as they belong to LifeLong, they get a whole plethora of services along with what's probably more important for Black and maybe Latino patients. They are respected and they are listened to and they are talked to and they are treated with dignity. And I've never seen what we call systemic unconscious bias that I've seen in every other plan.
Okay. Thank you so much for connecting the dots for us as far as the story, you, lifelong medical care, and how, that connection happened. So I love to hear that because, we have lots of conversations about, systemic things in healthcare. So talk a bit about LifeLong's integrated whole person model of care and why that matters for patients and families.
Well, LifeLong is probably as comprehensive a plan as you can get. Most people, when they think about plans, they think about the need for primary care.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's much more, especially for underserved patients and especially for African American patients. There's much more to the healthcare system than that.
Mm-hmm.
You not only have to have a primary care doctor, you have to have one with certain characteristics who will listen. You have to have the opportunity to get some of the best specialists in the world engaged when you have a problem. And finally, you need to have institutions where you can go if you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
And LifeLong has all of those. So we look at the whole person, not just the physical part, but the mental part, and probably as much as is important, the healthcare delivery part, because it's all those things that surround care that separate out the care of underserved populations.
Mm-hmm. Let's dig a little deeper here. I love that LifeLong is, rooted in providing this type of care and this type of trust in the community. But let's talk about sometimes our own relationships with ourselves, our bodies, our health can be a blockage as well, because there's so much fear. There's so many reasons to fear going to the doctor, taking care of yourself, and, making sure that you have those, checklists taken care of. Hey, how old are you? What kind of tests do we need to run? So let's talk a little bit about that and the types of things that you see that create obstacles for us as individuals and our own healthcare.
Well, let's start with the premise that in most instances, African Americans do much worse with chronic disease.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's absolutely no genetic reason for that. I mean, it's not been demonstrated. I think race in that situation is kind of a social construct.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, if you put African Americans in systems that are good from early detection, disease prevention, and appropriate treatment, sometimes they do better with even prostate cancer. And so consequently, what you face when you enter the system often is an unconscious bias on the part of the provider about African Americans or underserved patients.
Yeah.
And consequently, with that kind of unconscious bias comes a certain neglect in the way in which you are managed, both from the front desk all the way through to the doctor. Sometimes they don't think you need an explanation. Sometimes they can talk to you with your first name without your permission. Sometimes they don't explain things and get upset when you request either an explanation or a second opinion or a particular test. And a lot of that would not happen with our ethnic groups. And I remember once I was at a large group of doctors, and this was brought up and discussed. And each one of them was incensed by saying, it's not me. I believe you better get yourself together before you enter the healthcare system. And the appropriate healthcare systems are built from the bottom up, not from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
And LifeLong is the kind of system, though, that does take care of you from the top down.
Wowzer. Thank you so much. We love to hear this from someone that we trust, because sometimes it's easy to be, okay, is this my imagination? We hear the story so much that, again, that feeds the fear that we might have as individuals. It's like, can I ask this question? Is it safe for me to, want more information? I don't know. I feel like there's been certain times where I felt like I'm gonna share a quick story. I just remember going to the OBGYN when I was pregnant with my daughter, and the lady had her foot in the door. And I was like, dang, dude, okay, I know you got other places to be, but can I ask some questions? Are you making time? So that the body language was everything, and I just did not feel like I was going to be taken care of the way I wanted. So thank you for saying that, to let us know that, hey, it's not our imagination. It's not a thing that is unreasonable for us to want to be treated in a certain way. So LifeLong Medical Care, tell us about how the organization has evolved to meet the changing needs of the community, because, after 50 years, I know a whole lot of things have changed as, we've all evolved.
Yeah, well, I think the thing about LifeLong that really intrigued me from the beginning is that they have a culture which talks about and deals with what you're talking about. They are as much involved and engaged in assessing analytics around service as they are around treatment and outcomes. The culture in LifeLong, and I cannot speak for other community clinics, although I imagine there's much similarity. The culture for LifeLong is that we take care of the whole person. And we have a relationship with patients and underserved patients, and we do that better than anybody else. Because here we're assessed or expected to provide quality services, to use quality services, to have good outcomes. And I think all of those are wrapped into one ball around both wellness and around healthcare. I can do stuff for lifelong patients you can't get from your doctor. I mean, because we have relationships that have been forged over many years with specialists, hospitals, with other doctors within our culture. And so I can get you a ride, I can get you what you need, stuff that I can't get in my insurance. I can tell them if I need something. I mean, I've had several health challenges, but I've had to knock down and drag out fights with doctors and insurance companies. And I could give you some anecdotes that will be very shocking. But that doesn't happen here. I think once you come into LifeLong, you are part of our culture, not just part of our medical delivery system.
I love it. So for somebody hearing about LifeLong for the first time, what would you like them to know about the organization's mission and the people that it serves?
Well, I think that it's committed to serve the Medi-Cal population. And I say Medi-Cal population, it may include other populations, but most people are kind of familiar with what Medi-Cal means. Many doctors never accepted Medi-Cal and don't accept it now. And so consequently, the community clinic system is a system that gathers people together under the alliance and gets a chance to provide them with top quality care. So I would say that if you're in a situation like that, where you need Medicaid, we have mental services, pharmacy services, transportation services, in-hospital services. We have all kinds of relationships. It's like a spoke in the wheel. You know, a lot of wheels in private healthcare systems don't have too many spokes. You won't run. That's just your problem. But in LifeLong, pretty much every spoke that we need to provide quality care for people, including the way they are respected and treated, is taken care of in this program. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a doctor here, because I'm really an independent, doctor in many ways. But I'm just saying it because it's the truth. And I think you can go around, tap people on the shoulder and say, what's your experience with LifeLong? And I think that's the reputation that they will have. That you get quality services with respect, appropriate, competent, dependent upon trust and outcomes.
I love it. So tell us about the LeNoir Health Center. Is that where you are right now?
Yeah, the LeNoir Health Center. That's why I'm still here. And so I have to make sure it's successful before I decide to leave, yes.
Uh-huh. I love that. So just ahead of its time, lifelong medical care. That's what I'm hearing when you say whole person care, a whole person model. And, I know so many of us had to learn bit by bit how to even care for ourselves in that whole body, mind, spirit sort of way, and to not be avoidant, because that's really what self-love is, to not be avoidant
Right.
of self-care and all the things. So, this has been great. I know that you have, a busy day. Is there anything else you want us to know about? Any way that we can support or be a part of what Lifelong is doing and how we can support for the next 50 years?
I think LifeLong is now in an interesting position. One of the our new CEO is Mr. John Jenkins. He
Yep.
was from the private sector, and so he looks at LifeLong with two things. One is a business acumen, but another is a commitment to the program. He was chair of the board, so he understands what our mission is. And I would like to say that the community clinics are going to be so critically important as we move forward. So they need to be supported by everybody in our community. What people don't see a lot of the times is that health requires integration. That means if your neighbor is sick, that increases your chance of getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
So fortunately, there are community clinics, especially like LifeLong, that take care of some of the sickest patients in the system. And they have a place to go with all of the properties that I've already mentioned. And so what that does is it raises the level of health in the community. And so consequently, I would say that what we can all do is to recognize that every part of our healthcare system, to include Alameda Medical Center, to include the Alliance, to include the community clinics, has to be supported. They cannot fail because they are the last bastion of quality healthcare, wellness, and healthcare in the system. So that's what I would say.
Oh, I love it. You're just hitting all the points because if we didn't know that before, we know now. We went through COVID and we understand that if your neighbor's sick, yep, you're about to get sick. And
I think the central question that you have to ask a physician about the services he's rendering in the system he's in, would you bring your children here? Would you come here?
huh.
I would, without question, I would bring any element in my family to a program like LifeLong.
That is really good to know. That is really good to know. Navigating healthcare in and of itself, that's a whole nother thing. It can be stressful. It could be confusing.
Right.
And, am I getting proper care for my family? I have a family member who is in, the medical profession. And, it's like, I'm always afraid of like, I wouldn't know to ask this question that you're telling me right now. So it's like you have to get someone. It's almost like it's like a coaching that you have to have so that you can be empowered when you go.
I founded a nonprofit called the African American Wellness Project
Right.
20 years ago out of the rage that I felt at the way Black people were treated. And it started very quickly in a room full of experts. The Congress people were there, the META supervisors were there, and I asked them to go around the room one time and tell me where the healthcare system failed you. And we weren't four people, and somebody was crying, somebody was, everybody had a story. Everyone had a story. And so we founded the African American Wellness Project to get people the tools they need to deal with this system. You can go on our website and you can see all of the things that we suggest that you do to build your own healthcare system. And building a whole care system, to trail back to the point of our discussion, is a system like LifeLong's. And if you don't have it in your profile, then you need to start gathering resources so that you know that when you enter the system, you will be treated just like everyone else with quality and resources and opportunity. And I can tell you right now, I think I wanted to see, I'm trying to think, an ophthalmologist. It's going to be like December before I could get an ophthalmology appointment. I got great insurance. It was December. My wife went to see a doctor one of her specialists, she couldn't see until January 15th. I mean, but that doesn't happen in lifelong. It just doesn't, because our relationship with specialists is somewhat different. But
Wow.
you can build a system like that by demanding from your doctors the things that you know you're going to need. And you always should have an advocate. And it can't be your brother or your cousin or somebody who doesn't know anything about healthcare. You need to tap someone on the shoulder right now that you know knows something about healthcare and say, if I'm admitted to the hospital or if I have a serious problem, I want you engaged in the discussion and I want you to help me with that. So, and that's great. And so what you tapped into was an advocate. But I would suggest that if people want to know what a great system is, have them study the lifelong medical care system.
And it's not often we get to have empowering conversations like this, Dr. LeNoir. You know, it's something that I know for me, I've had to learn bit by bit, blessed with good health. But at the same time, it's like that things can change in an instant. And if we don't stay on top of it, that good health is not going to last all that long. So I love, it's like you're giving us a list here of things. You have to build your own system. This is not language that I was taught, or it was not my experience as a young person. I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to do this, So it was a lot of fear-based thinking about myself, my health. And, perhaps some other folks can relate to that. But thanks to you and what you do, what Lifelong Medical Care does, the African American Wellness Project. Thank you again for connecting the dots to all of these wonderful things. It's great to know that we have someone who is advocating for us as a community.
Well, yeah, we've been pretty steady about that for a long time. Because, like I say, when you start, you can go to any of your friends and just ask them, what happened when you had this or when you had that and you went to the healthcare system? You're going to find many of them who are unhappy and dissatisfied.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Sit there waiting for this magical system to take care of them. I mean, you better take care of yourself and use the magical system to your advantage. And like I say, so too long a discussion that's not relevant for what we're talking about exactly right now. But there's lots of information out there that we've given to people and lots of information, references and stuff. So you can build your own system. But I think it's still critically important that you take charge of your own health and don't let the health system take charge of you.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot real quick here. Top 3 things here when we talk about like our health and of course, having that relationship, building your own system. But like, what are the top 3 things that you wish more people would do to care for themselves? Just like everyday regular stuff that you can just throw out there for us to think about.
I'll start with this. When I was working for CBS, I interviewed a cardiac surgeon. And in the days before you could slide things up into the heart, so most people who had heart problems many people had to have heart surgery. So I asked him, I said, when you look inside the heart, when you're operating, what do you think? He said, when I look inside the heart, I think, why didn't these people take better care of themselves? And so I'm thinking that one of the top things is you have to understand the things that keep you healthy. That's the first thing. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is the early detection. When you have symptoms that are not, that are unique to you, then you need to do something about that. And then you need to get a system where you're able to do things that you think you need to do to get healthy. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is that we must all advocate for every element in the system, particularly the community clinics. And I think they're the base. They're taking care of the sickest group of people in the system without resources. And I think Lifelong is a tremendous example of that. And I think that what's so critically important as the third thing is that shows like this. I mean, there's so much on there. I mean, I put something up called the Health Tip of the Day. And I have to compete with a baby doing 100 push-ups. So we got to figure on YouTube. They're not going to look at me. I mean, if I'm holding my wife, my lovely wife, and I love to hold her in public, I'll get 400 Facebook hits. But if I talk to you about vitamin C, maybe 45 or 50. I mean, so that we got to find effective ways for programs like this and information like this to get
Yes.
all populations, and especially, like I say, through the community clinics. I think they are an appropriate solution for many of the problems that we have in underserved communities. They're threatened at this point, like all health resources are. And I think people should become not only familiar, but advocates for community clinics like LifeLong. And I want people to appreciate the enthusiasm I have for the LifeLong medical care program. It's not self-serving. It's kind of genuine that this is the way I think medicine should be practiced, not only for underserved communities, but for all communities.
I love it. That is an excellent word. I feel like if we have enthusiasm and joy about living, wanting to invest in ourselves and our healthcare, and using these tools. We said social media, but we got the internet, we got AI, we got all these things that can empower the way we unravel our own health and the way we approach it. So we are in a very powerful place, and that undercurrent of vitality and enthusiasm is everything. It's everything. So that is one way we can use social media. It's like, what? Let me make sure to follow this so I can get all of this information every day.
Yeah, well, so I think that conversations like this
Yeah.
need to amplify throughout the Black community and
Uh-huh.
underserved communities. And so I appreciate you having me as a guest.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. This will not be the last time that you will see us together because, I feel like there's great things that can come out of the partnership. I don't know if you know the story, or maybe you do, because I think we talked about it briefly at the gala. Um, I just reached out on the LifeLong account and say, hey, I want to be a part of this 50th anniversary. I would love to be your host. And
Right.
that's how I ended up being the host.
Right.
So I put that out there because we can always make power moves for ourselves, our health, our community
Absolutely.
by asking. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, we have podcast, we have a StreamYard, we have almost everything, and I'm the medical editor for BlackDoctor.org. So I mean, we have lots of ways to communicate, but this is a good opportunity for me. Most of the time I'm hosting programs,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't get a chance to talk about what I'm most enthusiastic about in more than a minute. And so I appreciate this opportunity to talk about LifeLong and to talk about health in general.
I love it. I love it. This is so wonderful. I feel that's when I know I've had a good interview with somebody, when I just feel better about everything after we finish our conversation. I feel better about everything. We've got all of us have bills to pay. We've got responsibilities and we've got things to do. But that enthusiasm and that joy for living is really what we want. We want to feel good while we're living our lives.
Yeah,
And, I love that that's what we're talking about. LifeLong
right,
medical care is the perfect name, LifeLong,
right,
so that we can live long, healthy lives. And, you know, feel the way we want to feel when we wake up in the morning,
right.
you know? So it's simple, but it's complex. And I love that we know that we can build our own healthcare system. We can build our own, and we're empowered to do that. 50 years of lifelong medical care. We're celebrating really all year long, and we are so happy and proud. So we're continue to celebrate. Go ahead and click all of the links that you see so that you can follow, so that you can support, so that you can donate, and so that you can be a part of the community. Lifelong medical care celebrating this 50 years, and it's so exciting to be a part of the community and part of the story. The one and only Dr. Mike LeNoir, our super special guest today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.